Ms. Malliotakis.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for being here today. I think we're, as members, are very excited about this opportunity to build on the success of Tax Cut and Jobs Act. The TCJA, it created millions of jobs, it lifted middle-class wages, it brought unemployment down to record lows for African Americans, for Hispanics, did great things for women entrepreneurs, and we're really looking forward to seeing not only extended and made permanent, but also adding some additional provisions to make it stronger. One of the things that we saw for those that I represent that was beneficial was the doubling of the standard tax credit, the doubling of the child tax credit, the lowering of the personal income tax, and the elimination of the alternative minimum tax. And so I wanted to talk to Ms. Gallagher because you and I agree that the alternative minimum tax cannot come back. And the issue for my constituents, middle-class families in Staten Island, Southern Brooklyn, a lot of them didn't benefit from the SALT deduction because of the alternative minimum tax. And so we have to make sure that that does not come back. But we are, as SALT state members, looking to try to provide an increase to that SALT deduction. And we recognize that the reason why we need SALT relief is because our mayors and our governors treat taxpayers like ATM machines. They continue to hammer them over the head year after year. Property tax levy goes up. They don't want to cut the personal income tax rates at the local and state level, like we saw President Trump do at the federal level. So we recognize that it really is a problem created by our local and state governments, but nonetheless, we met with President Trump. We had a successful meeting. He does want to help, as does the chairman, has been willing to help provide relief from the federal level to help those middle-class families. So I guess my question for you, first and foremost, is the alternative minimum tax should not come back, right? And if so, what kind of impact would that be on middle-class families?
Thank you for that very good question. And usually when we start talking about the alternative minimum tax, or AMT as I'll refer to it, people just run out of the room, frankly. It is one of the most complex and complicated tax computations in the Internal Revenue Code. I mean, I remember trying to learn it as a young tax professional and threw my hands up many, many times. So I was thrilled to see the AMT exemptions increase considerably so that so many of my clients were no longer subject to it.
And it targeted the middle class, really. That's who got hammered by it, right?
It definitely targeted and hammered middle class, no doubt about it.
And you said that in your testimony that if it does return, it would affect 7.2 million taxpayers starting in 2026, and that would be predominantly the middle class.
Yes.
And the SALT deduction, can you explain how constituents may have not benefited from SALT because of the AMT?
Yes, so the SALT deduction is, because of its limitation, the SALT deduction is actually part of the computation of the AMT. It's an add back. So when you're calculating your alternative minimum taxable income, you have to add back all of your SALT taxes. And so my warning in my written testimony was that if there's an argument to have SALT, then we have to keep AMT out as well.
I agree
because
with you.
Everybody who may not be limited in SALT will now be paying AMT, and they're no further ahead than they were.
Okay, I agree with you 100%. Now, with the SALT, if we're able to increase that deduction, do you have any estimates of what could cover a majority of middle-class families, let's say people with incomes $400,000 or $500,000 or less?
I have not done that math.
Okay, no problem.
Sorry.
Just curious. I know it was around $23,000 was the average deduction for middle-class families with an income level of $200,000 and $500,000. That was in 2016, so today it would probably be more like $30,000 if you want to hit that income level or below. Should we index it like the standard deduction so it goes up year after year to keep pace somewhat with inflation?
Well, I think indexing is always fair. I mean, inflation in dollars go up tremendously, so
Do you think we should cap income eligibility so it is targeted to the middle class and not completely lift the cap? I think there's some concern from members across both sides of the aisle about giving relief for ultra-wealthy. I mean, do you think this should be targeted, the SALT deduction, increase it and then cap it so only certain incomes could qualify?
Well, certainly I'd want to look at the pros and cons of all of those things, but certainly there is a middle ground to get the middle class the relief that they need.
Great. If we wanted to also limit it for properties, would it make sense to limit the real estate portion or the property tax portion to just your primary residence? Would that be something that could be a possible solution to kind of limit it?
It certainly could. Not, I mean, many, a lot of folks don't have more than one property, not just the middle class, so.
Thank you. All this salt got me thirsty, Mr. Chairman, and I've run out of time, so thank you very much, and I yield back.
All right. Votes have been